Huawei, a brand representing China's technological prowess, achieved a remarkable milestone in the Chinese smartphone market in 2020. With its outstanding performance in collaboration with its sub-brand Honor, it captured nearly 50% of the market share. Adding to this achievement, many Apple users began to show interest in Huawei's Mate and P series. Furthermore, Huawei's strong performance in the European market garnered widespread industry attention globally. Huawei seemed to be preparing to compete head-to-head with Apple in the high-end market. However, its success was short-lived as it soon faced significant external pressure. The most severe sanction came from the United States, which dealt a severe blow to Huawei's Kirin chip production. The impact of the sanctions led to Huawei's partner, TSMC, ceasing the production of Kirin chips, leaving Huawei reliant on existing Kirin 9000 chip inventories to continue operations. This external turmoil, like a sudden storm, plunged Huawei into an unprecedented crisis. By 2022, this pressure continued. As a result of the sanctions, Huawei, once holding a market share as high as 50%, saw its high silicon chip market share drop to 1%. Meanwhile, Qualcomm, MediaTek, and Apple nearly monopolized the chip market. In the face of this predicament, how might Huawei respond? First, Huawei may negotiate with the United States, hoping for the lifting of sanctions and the restoration of its cooperation with TSMC to resume Kirin chip production. However, this option is unlikely given the political and economic interests involved. The United States is unlikely to easily relent on Huawei. The second option is to rely on domestic technological capabilities. China has long been striving to enhance its own R&D capabilities, especially in the semiconductor industry. However, both the government and businesses understand that this is a long-term process. Particularly without the support of ASML's EUV lithography technology, China would undoubtedly need to invest more time and effort to produce high-end chips at 7 nanometers, 5 nanometers, or 4 nm. The most practical third option is technological innovation, which is the path that Huawei is currently pursuing. In order to circumvent the sanctions, Huawei has begun exploring 3D stacked chip technology. By stacking two chips together, this technology theoretically achieves stronger performance, thus avoiding the need for high-end lithography machines. However, this technology still faces a major challenge in terms of heat generation and power consumption. This means that 3D stacked chips may not be applicable to smartphones, but they still have broad prospects in other fields such as computers and automobiles. Even more crucial is the development of quantum chip technology, which is an area Huawei is deeply researching. In contrast to traditional silicon-based chips, information interaction in quantum chips is achieved through collisions between quantum particles. This means that Huawei can produce high-performance quantum chips without relying on external lithography machines. Once this technology is successfully developed, Huawei will be completely free from the constraints of sanctions. In fact, China has made significant progress in the field of quantum technology. The QEDA software developed by a Chinese company is a clear example, as it effectively designs quantum chips. Huawei has already demonstrated a prototype of its Kirin quantum computing simulation integrated machine, indicating a major breakthrough for the company in this field. While Huawei's current situation is undoubtedly challenging, the company has not given up. Through continuous technological innovation and research and development investment, Huawei is striving to break free from sanctions and return to the peak of the market. This is an unprecedented chip war, full of variables, and now China has begun to fight back. In the 1,568-day Great Breakthrough, on one hand, Huawei's smartphone business has been severely affected, but on the other hand, Huawei has continued to increase its investment in research and development. In the book A Brief History of Chips, the author, Wang Bo, comprehensively outlines Huawei's chip crisis process. The success of the breakthrough battle was not achieved overnight. It took 1,568 days, about 4.5 years. I am happy to review it with everyone. On May 15, 2019, the United States imposed sanctions on Huawei and stopped supplying chips to Huawei. At that time, Huawei had evolved from a small company that could only design simple chips for switches to one of the few companies in the world capable of designing 5G communication chips using the most advanced technology. The second wave of sanctions arrived a year later. On May 16, 2020, the United States invoked the long-arm jurisdiction principle, requiring companies worldwide using US technology to not supply Huawei. Otherwise they would also be sanctioned. Huawei's high-end chips faced complete supply cutoff. TSMC rushed to deliver the last batch of chips manufactured for Huawei within the 4-month buffer period, and since then, the Kirin high-end chips have become a thing of the past. The third wave of sanctions came even faster. On August 17, 2020, the sanctions expanded to include the software and services sector, with 38 of Huawei's affiliated companies being added to the entity list, leaving Huawei with no way out and in a precarious situation. In September of the same year, Yu Chengdong, then president of Huawei's consumer business, displayed a line of large characters on the background wall at the Huawei Developer Conference: "No one can extinguish the stars in the sky." In March 2021, the United States announced a fourth round of sanctions against Huawei, leading to the blocking of the supply channels for 5G RF modules. The previously stockpiled Kirin 5G chips from Huawei were rendered useless, and could only be used as 4G chips. In November of the same year, the United States signed the Secure Equipment Act of 2021 to ensure that unsafe equipment from companies like Huawei and ZTE will no longer enter the U.S. communication networks. As the U.S. sanctions list grew longer, it not only added companies like Hikvision, Inspur, and SMIC, but also included 20 Chinese universities. Looking back at 2019, the year the chip crisis began, Huawei's total global smartphone shipments reached 240 million units, with the highest market share in the domestic market and the second highest global market share. However, in 2020, Huawei smartphone shipments fell to 189 million units, a year-on-year decrease of 21.5%. By the end of 2020, Huawei had to sell its own on a smartphone brand to save itself. The situation continued to worsen. Due to the lack of 5G chips, research firm Omdia's global smartphone shipment report showed that Huawei smartphone shipments in 2021 were 35 million units, an 81.6% year-on-year decrease. In 2022, Huawei smartphone shipments further decreased to 28 million units during the 1,568-day Great Breakthrough. On one hand, Huawei's smartphone business was severely affected, but on the other hand, Huawei continued to increase its investment in research and development. According to Huawei's annual report, as of the end of 2022, Huawei had over 114,000 R&D employees, accounting for 55.4% of the total number of employees. In 2022, Huawei's R&D expenditure was approximately 161.5 billion yuan, accounting for 25.1% of the annual revenue. The accumulated R&D expenditure over the past decade exceeded 977.3 billion yuan, representing an investment level of nearly 1 trillion yuan. Finally, at the end of August 2023, the Huawei Mate 60 Pro was launched, marking the success of the breakthrough in the high-tech field. Huawei has long been committed to technological breakthroughs, replacing imports with domestic technology, achieving independent innovation, and representing the country's level in certain niche areas of high-tech fields. On August 29, the Huawei Mate 60 Pro was pre-sold before release, and half a month later, September 13, the Apple iPhone 15 launch event commenced. The new Huawei device and the new Apple device faced a direct showdown, according to information from the Huawei online store. The current starting price for the Huawei flagship phone Mate 60 is 5,999 yuan per unit, while the Mate 60 Pro is priced at 6,999 yuan per unit. On the Apple official website, the iPhone 15 is priced at 5,999 yuan per unit, and the iPhone 15 Pro is priced at 7,999 yuan per unit. The dynamic island, silent key, and USB-C charging port became some of the few highlights at the Apple launch event. Currently, the showdown between Huawei and Apple in the high-end smartphone market has just begun. One is the return of the king, and the other is an industry giant, making the outcome unpredictable. The strong sales of Huawei's new smartphones reflect its mass production capabilities, which are beneficial for advancing new product development and the overall system's progress. As a full industry chain company, Huawei's proprietary Harmony OS operating system and its connectivity with the Huawei PanGPU artificial intelligence large model contribute to forming a complete ecological solution. From a global perspective, Huawei has achieved technological independence for China and has paved a new path for Chinese companies' globalization through research and development. For related industries in China, the development of Huawei's 5G chips also guides the acceleration of the domestic substitution process in Chinese manufacturing. It's worth noting that although the king has returned and Chinese chips have made breakthroughs in breaking the blockade, it's not a complete breakthrough, and the localization of chip production still has a long way to go.